Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 86 of Third and Wrong. I'm your co-host, Stephen Mullin, joined by Zach and Ozzy. As always, we're pleased to be joined by the president of Football Canada, Jim Mullin. Jim, thank you for joining us. And, tell us a little bit about your journey becoming the Football Canada's president and, what your kind of goals are from there.
Well, it's a long journey and I respect everybody's time, so I'll try to give you the short version of it. My background's in broadcasting. I've done about 500 games of play-by-play in the Western Hockey League, in Canadian University football, and in international basketball of all places. Through my journey in broadcasting, I was the sports director at CKNW, which was known as the top dog in Vancouver back in the day, the number one station in Vancouver. From there, I shifted to event management, got closer to the game that I love, managing the 2011 Vanier Cup. And during the Vanier Cup, as a promotional vehicle, I created a TV show, which is these days crowned Gridiron Nation on TSN, which is this year, unfortunately, because of the coronavirus pandemic, is playing in segments right now on tsn.ca. But when everything's back to whatever normal is, next year we'll be back with full shows. But I've been doing the TV show now for 10 years. Got a great sponsor of the TV show that's supporting us for the last 9 years. And insofar as Football Canada goes, I was attracted to volunteering my time with Football BC back in about 2013 to try to help them through some challenges. They had numerous challenges. Managed to help them start up a new PSO in BC to replace Football BC. And through that, Richard McLean, who's now the head of IFAF, asked me if I was interested in coming on board with Football Canada. At that time, he was the president of Football Canada. So I've been on the board since 2015. I was elected last year, and we had all sorts of wonderful plans, and then 2020 came along. So we've been trying to plan through this year and respond to the numerous challenges that are out there. And they're all a little bit different in each of the provinces in terms of what you can do, in terms of what you can't do, and in terms of COVID infection rates having a direct effect on that. So, no doubt, we bring a lot of ambition to the table in terms of where we want to take Football Canada, where we want to take Team Canada on the international scene, and what we want to do with a national competition like the Canada Cup. But as we plan for those things with COVID in front of us, we find that with every file that we have, we're planning for 5 different scenarios. And so that's a challenge. So with not having a full-time TV show right now, but still having the sponsor back us, which is great through this. I had a discussion with our sponsor. He says, "Look, Football Canada really needs you right now." So I've been as president of Football Canada, dedicating about 50 hours a week to making sure that we try to get through and get out on the other end of this COVID thing intact as much as possible when it comes to the game in this country.
That's awesome. And, on a lighter note, Football Canada recently announced an exciting 2-part summit series with plenty of key stakeholders in the Canadian game, including the CFL, the Canadian Junior Football League, U Sports. How long is that in the works, or was that in the works for? And what did it take to get all the parties on board for that?
Well, I saw an opportunity in our sport to move forward quite rapidly to get the summit started. One of the things that we experienced going back to March was that, as different groups in the game were looking for answers to the various challenges that were out there, they were starting conversations with people and groups that they hadn't started conversations up with in a number of years. I think football is a notoriously siloed game. in that you have, one university group doing something over here. You've got a minor association doing this. You got junior guys over there, and they all think they're smarter than the guy over in the other silo, right? And not finding points of cooperation with one another. So I felt that we had an opportunity to start finding that cooperation. And in my discussions with the CFL, it turned out that there was another individual in the CFL office that was thinking the same thing at the same time as me. So I spent a lot of time trying to pull the various groups into the first series of summit calls. It was easy with the CFL. The people that they have at the office that survived that wave of cuts certainly have the time and the focus to apply themselves to something like this. The CJFL was on board. Youth sports is, it's a 12-sided dice. You roll the thing, you never know what number that you're going to come up with, and it's never going to be the same number twice. So it took us a fair bit of wrangling to get them on board. Finally, we did, and I think they're happy that they participated in the first wave of the summit. The second wave of the summit is going to drill down into more regional issues, and that will be in January. I know one of the things that we want to tackle in that is the fate of high school football and the future of high school football. Certainly on the prairies, high school football is strong. In Ontario, it's under some duress right now. In terms of the numbers, I'd say about 7 years ago, being in about the 400 range in terms of number of schools that played. 5 years ago, it's down to 315. Now it's in around the 270 range.
Oh, wow.
And that's because high school football in this country is really driven by volunteers. And, there has been some success in BC with high school football because they can, in some cases, like with the New Westminster program, they can recreate the Friday Night Lights feel. They can make it a community offering. Unfortunately, in Ontario, it's really treated it as an extracurricular project where you play as soon as you get out of school in the afternoon at 3:30, at 4 o'clock. It doesn't bring the school together. It doesn't bring the community together. Plus, you have school superintendents and principals always trying to analyze the liabilities that are involved in and around sport. So there's a number of challenges in and around the high school game, and that, along with about 4 other issues, we're going to have 5 calls coming up in January in the second phase of the summit calls.
Awesome. No, thank you for really getting into that. This kind of goes into, we look back to when you first got in as president here. What was kind of the number one goal when you first got into Football Canada as the president? What was that goal you wanted to really achieve?
To make Football Canada the hub of communications for the sport in this country, to make it the crossroads where everybody comes to develop strategies in and around the sport. And I think we're well on the road to doing that. And it's taken a lot of time and it's taken a lot of patience. For instance, I don't want to go too far down this road because talking about bylaws and committees is not necessarily the sexiest category out there. But in terms of our bylaws, we had one type of member, and that was a provincial sports organization. Football Alberta, Football Saskatchewan, Football Quebec, those types of organizations. And they do a great job in terms of delivering our programming. They are our members that create Football Canada. But we didn't have conversations and relationships that were directly tied into our committees, where all the policy and all the decision making is really made with the CFL, with the CJFL, with youth sports, with different organizations like that, even with NFL Canada, which I think is an organization that should be on our radar. So to pull these groups into the national discussion was paramount for me, because they also bring resources as well, whether it's human resources or if it's straight up money, because we don't get own the podium money like the Olympic sports do. So we get a lot out of very little in terms of what our budget is as an organization. So to make it that hub, that would be number one for me. The number two thing, and it's because I experienced this down in Mexico in 2018, we've got the greatest world junior football team on earth, and nobody knows about it. We're the back-to-back champions. Nobody else has won back-to-back. Since 2000, in terms of global competition, we've won the most world championships. Since IFAF started world competition, we've won the most world championships. We're 7-6 in gold medal games. We produce CFL and NFL players out of that program. I think most of the salute has to go to the programs that work with them on a day-to-day basis, but certainly a Team Canada is a great destination. So we need to find ways and channels and platforms to get that product out in front of Canadians. And we need to be proud about it. We need to be aggressive about it. And we need to be unrelenting about it. Like, the idea that we were on cbcsports.ca playing for a world championship that we were defending in front of 30,000 people in Mexico. And, hey, we did okay considering we threw the broadcast together in 2 weeks out of Mexico.
Wow.
That's a whole other story. But
Wild.
to get that out there and to get it back to people, and to get feedback from CBC that we were their top 5 live sports event of all time on their web service, on their streaming service, was really gratifying, because we did it in such a short period of time. There was no promotion of it. It tells me that it has the potential to be a great television product, whether it's the U20s playing on an annual basis, whether it's getting the best university guys together, playing like a U24 team, getting the best seniors to play against the team world, those sorts of things. That would be another goal of mine. And unfortunately, coronavirus and the pandemic has really slowed progress on that down, but it's still very much something that we talk about on a day-to-day basis about how do we do this.
That's incredible. And the fact that Steve, Zach, and I are as kind of plugged in into football, or we think we are as much as we are, and that we haven't heard about that, the World Junior Football, that's just baffling to me. It's kind of, I can see where you're coming from in the sense that you'd almost want it to be talked about as if it was like the World Juniors and hockey kind of thing, at least on that same or similar wavelength. But I'm kind of curious, Jim, I don't know if you want to go down this rabbit hole, but that throwing the broadcast together in 2 weeks, you said that was a whole other story. I'm just kind of curious if you would care to go into that a little bit.
Well, I do have a few stories about this one. Well, the how do I approach this? We knew that there was a broadcast coming out of Mexico. The public broadcaster in Mexico had arranged with the tournament organizer to put together a pretty tight little 7-camera operation. So it was right about just good enough to be like a broadcast operation in Canada. But of course, we couldn't find a broadcaster to pick it up. That's why we went to cbcsports.ca. And luckily, within the CBC Sports family, we had a believer in football, because it's not CBC's policy to pick up non-Olympic sports. But because this was a Team Canada, because this was international competition, we sold him on it. And it actually took a bit of a sales job. Where we produce our TV show, normally the studio in Surrey, BC, Hubcast Productions, they use a type of technology that isn't old school technology. It isn't getting the big dome truck rolling it into a stadium, laying down all the cables, and then sending the thing back up by satellite or fiber line. What they use is bonded cellular. So it's basically, for people in the industry, they'll understand what a DeGero system is. Basically, they can do a multi-camera bonded cellular setup and switch it through a studio that they have in Surrey. What we did was we took two feeds. We took a feed that was a locked off camera, so when they went and did sideline interviews with the Mexican broadcast team, it sounds like wrestling, the Mexican broadcast team. But when they did interviews with the Mexican broadcast team on the sidelines, we switched away to a wide shot, right? And then the rest of the feed came in. It was a dirty feed. We were told it was going to be a clean feed. But the dirty feed came in with Spanish graphics on it, and it's still on cbcsports.ca actually, if you want to go see the championship game. But we got a fairly solid package out of it. We pre-recorded our intros down from field level. They reassembled it back in Vancouver. They cut it, they ran it, patched it all together, and we did 3 games from there. However, the organizer in Mexico thought that we were making millions of dollars off this. He actually said that in a poorly translated email. So because we couldn't really communicate very well, he decided that he was going to give us the picture, but he wasn't going to give us the sound, right?
Oh.
So our first game we actually did from studio because the thing came together so quickly. The game against Sweden we did in studio in Surrey, and there was no crowd sound. So we actually for the first quarter, Adam, the guy that helps me produce Crown Gridiron Nation, did crowd noise. They actually did a distortion where he went into the mic like that and turned it up and turned it down depending on the flow of play.
Wow.
until someone found a file, an audio file that they could use with crowd noise in the background. So you couldn't hear any of the whistles, right? And you couldn't hear the official when he turned his mic on. But we just ran like kind of white crowd noise in the background to get us to the Sweden game, right? And then in the second game, the Japan game, we had my audio feed. I was responsible for everything there technically as well, right? So we had the audio box, you got the headsets. I had to set the camera up, right? So in the press box, and of course they didn't accommodate us in an actual press area. We were out in a very kind of public area of the press box where people could walk by and stick their head around and see what was going on. And then right beside us were the Canadian coaches. So they could hear every word we were saying. And then when Jamie Barise decided to lose it at times, people back in Canada could hear him yelling and screaming. So there was that too. So what we would do is when we came back into halftime, we would turn around and look back at the camera that was pointed at our heads. I'd tilt it down. I'd ask on our cell phones, which were set up like an IFB, if the shot looked good. They'd tell me when the shot would look good. We stand beside each other. We talk about the first half. They'd switch us off after we did our 3-minute stand up. I'd reposition the camera so there would be the wide shot of Estadio Olimpico, and then we'd get back into the game. And that would be our bailout shot for the rest of the tournament. Now, coming back from the tournament, we're all very proud of ourselves. And I had all of this bonded cellular equipment with me. So we had been doing Ubers all through Mexico, and we decided to stick with an Uber on the way back. And so we're going an Uber. We get ready to go to the airport. we're feeling loose, totally proud of ourselves. Stuffed this tiny little Chevy, a little 3-banger Chevy, stuff it full of our bags. The guy doesn't close the back hatch all the way. We don't realize this until he does a 180 about 5 minutes away from the hotel. The back hatch pops loose and I hear,
Oh no.
Oh,
90
man.
seconds later, a woman pulls up beside us as we're driving, yelling in Spanish at us something and pointing back. And we realize all of our TV equipment that we had, about $20,000 worth, spilled out onto the street.
Oh,
Right.
Oh my
And we're trying to
gosh.
tell this guy, stop right now, right? Doesn't speak a word of English, right? Stop right now. Like, pull over, man. We got to go get this stuff. And of course, he just keeps going and tries to figure out, and of course, we get out of the car and it's not there. And then, of course, Mexican highway system, you got to go up and around and back and through. And by that time, we're about 15 minutes from losing the stuff. I thought I was going to have a jammer, like those times when you're in a panic and you think your heart's like up in your throat like this, right? When you're feeling that level of anxiety.
For sure.
And so there I was with Gord Randall on a Mexican freeway in the middle of a median with grass up to our knees, looking for TV equipment for 90 minutes until we finally had to just pull the chute and go to the airport. And by the time I got to the airport, I invested in some quality Nicaraguan rum. And I got on the plane to get my blood pressure down. So yeah, so that was I know that was a really long walk, but that's what you have to do to get projects like that off the ground in a place like Mexico when you're not a native and you don't speak the language.
That is wild. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was much more of a treat than I even could have expected. Oh man.
I'm glad my anxiety was a great payoff.
Yeah, exactly. How did that conversation go when you had to tell them that you lost the equipment?
Well, I have a good working relationship with the people at Hubcast. I phoned Peter and I told him when I was at the airport, and we actually, because it was something that could be traced, because it sent off a cell signal when it was powered up. We were trying to follow it through Mexico, and then it disappeared, and then it popped up in Edmonton for 3 days. Seriously, the thing popped up in Edmonton for 3 days, and we tracked it down to about 3 city blocks, and then it totally went off the radar. So, but it was one of those pieces of technology that was totally useless for anyone who just didn't know or didn't have an application for it. And I paid out of my pocket. Football Canada never reimbursed me for it, but I paid the insurance deductible on that. That little. It was the $1,000 cab ride.
Oh man.
Oh geez, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But an incredible story nonetheless. And you made a success out of it. So there's that.
Yeah, we made a success out of it. I'm still really proud of what we did down there and what we pulled off and managed to get a Canadian World Championship back to Canada. And by the way, the World Junior Championship is the apex really for men's contact football when it comes to IFAF. I know there's a men's senior championship, all kinds of issues trying to get that thing up and going and sustaining it. You can get the best U19s or now it's U20s. You can get the best U20s available on a global basis to get together about once every 2 years. You can't do it with seniors. So it's the best offering that you can put together.
Fantastic. I wanted to ask you a little bit. You're talking about your goal when you took on the role of president. That primary goal was to kind of establish a hub of communication. I recall you saying between the CFL, U Sports, and CJFL, and obviously that what you've started now with the summit, that's got to be kind of the a really good foundation for you by the sounds of it in establishing that. I was just wondering, what are some of the ways, if you've talked about it with these other entities, that you guys can get in touch or get more involved in the grassroots level? If you've got any thoughts on that.
Well, that's one of the things about the second set of calls is it's really going to drill down into the grassroots level. But in terms of what we can do with U Sports and CJFL teams is we have two programs. One of them's targeted to kids from about 4 to 8, which is very introductory, which is the First Down program. And then we have the 8 to 12s, which is the CFL Futures program. And whether you're a community association or a U Sports team or a CJFL team, or even the YMCA, you can run one of these programs over a 6 to 8 week period and bring kids up to speed. Like the youngest kids, just picking up a ball and moving around with it is very basic, but it's a gateway into something. Mm-hmm. And with the 8 to 12, it's a little more skills oriented. Carleton Ravens run these programs. They built it up over the last couple of years where they have 700 kids that come through their programs that are Football Canada programs. And one of the things that we talked about at the summit level is that we want all 27 U Sports teams in the spring to run these programs, right? So, and we want all of the CJFL teams, all 18 CJFL teams, to run these programs. So if you got 18, 27, 600, somebody get a calculator out here so you can run the numbers on that. You know, that's reaching a lot of kids in the springtime, where we can then get them focused and motivated on taking up football in the summer and the fall in more traditional areas. Also, what it does is it promotes the programming that we already have, that then motivates the associations and the PSOs to run those programs once again in the fall. So there's that piece. The CFL worked with us also on a curriculum piece that's going into schools. So that allows teachers who are running phys ed courses to do flag football and to do touch football. That's been in development, and awesome. A lot of that can feed back into our programming as well. So in terms of those grassroots initiatives, I think they're all built up mainly around our key programming, although there's a number of other things too that I could go into great detail about, but the programming and that discussion that we had around the summit is fairly key for us, and it's one of the recommendations and resolutions that we had coming out of the summit. There you go, you guys got a scoop.
Awesome, love it.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's incredible to hear some of those grassroots programs. And I really like how they seem very intuitive, just in the sense that you introduce it at a young age and you're not trying to go too thick in the weeds with the younger kids, but just give them a football and kind of run around and just kind of get that feel for it. Really just kind of pique their interest in it, and if anything, and just allow them to develop that love for it. It's a great game, as we all know.
Well, I just want to bring up another point here. I think what it also does is it gives younger players in the CJFL programs and the U Sports programs, freshmen, second year guys, the opportunity to also play the role of instructor. And one of the biggest challenges we also have is coaching development. Our coaching numbers are off 30% over the last 10 years. So one of the things that we discussed is how do we reach the next generation of coaches? And we need to be able to offer NCCP coaching, at least at a basic level, cost-free, to freshman players, both at the CJFL and the U Sports level. So getting them involved and I think if they study coaching, it will actually make them better players. And I know there's a number of individuals that share that opinion with me. But in addition, Then when there's opportunities in the spring to apply coaching or even officiating courses to flag football, to youth football, to training camps, to those sorts of things, that opportunity is there. One of the things that also came up in association with that was diversity and BIPOC athletes. I spent about 2.5 days going through youth sports rosters, and I noted that 28.5% were visible minorities, but of the coaching staffs, only 13.7% were visible minorities. Even though we do a great job in this country with our 27 teams, and I guess our 28th team at Simon Fraser with 6 black head coaches, the staffs lack diversity. And for me, regardless of your background, what I see numerically is that we're losing over 50% of a group that are just leaving the sport. We need to find ways to retain them in the sport when they no longer play and they can apply themselves as coaches and officials. So that's also one of the things that came up on the radar in the summit meetings.
Right, and that makes sense, and just everybody would be a little bit more emotionally invested, and like you said, they learn a little bit about the game as they're mentoring these younger players. Again, very intuitive in that sense. It seems very logical how you guys are doing it. I really like that. Beyond the summit now, do you have plans to continually meet and work on this partnership? It sounds like that probably would be the case, but I just want to hear your thoughts.
Well, one of the things that we've now developed, and this is citing previous summits, by the way, U Sports had a summit in 2015, the CFL, NFL Canada, and Football Canada had one in 2005. They both developed a number of lofty goals, and then everybody left the summit and nothing was done. Reading through the summit, from 2005, the 15 points that were generated from it are the same 15 issues that we have today. And
Jeez.
So the only way to address these issues, and it's, as I mentioned before, committee ain't very sexy, but that's where it gets done, right? Where you bring people back together, you have those conversations, and you have action points that come out of those conversations. So one of the things that we've generated as a result of this is something called a National Organizing Committee. So within our structure, we have a board of directors, we have a finance committee and a governance committee and a business committee, and we have a contact and a non-contact committee. Where this falls in right there. So the CFL is on it, the CJFL is on it, U Sports is on it, and we're on it. And so, looking at our schedule of amateur events that we all agreed to throughout the year, we're going to focus on that schedule, figure out how we can promote it better, figure out how we can work together on it better, because we all share the same players through this process. And any other issues that come up that we can address on a national basis, we can generate dialogue, generate results from it, send it up to the board of directors, and then if there's any more detail that needs to be dealt with, it can be sent down to either the business committee, the governance committee, or the finance committee. Finance committee basically telling us whether we can afford it or not. So in that regard, we're meeting once every 2 months in that committee. It'll eventually move to quarterly, but to be able to come back, see each other, whether it's through a medium like this or eventually face to face, and have that focus and have that high level discussion is important, because if we don't have that follow up, then everything that we've done in a summit is all for naught.
Exactly. That makes perfect sense. That's good to hear, just from a fan's perspective, that all these different stakeholders are invested in it with their time on a little bit more of a consistent basis, because that's not always communicated to fans. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, and jumping onto that too, have you found all parties that are involved on that one committee, the viewpoints and everything going on with it has been pretty, um, everyone shares that same view, or has it been pretty hard coming to the decisions that need to be happening and such?
Well, I'll bring up an example of where we didn't agree, and that was the East-West Bowl. For many of your listeners out there, they may not even know that this thing exists, but it's basically an evaluation tool that is funded by the CFL that takes three of the best incoming seniors off of each U Sports team and throws them into a camp for a week, usually in a place like Ottawa or London, Ontario, or Quebec City. And they have a game at the end. And it is not even run by U Sports. It's actually run by a group of about 5 coaches that are leading coaches in the U Sports community. And they've been doing it for, would have been the 14th year this past year. And there have been some fantastic players that have played in the East-West Bowl. Unfortunately, when it comes to promotion, it's usually handed off to a school, and handed off to a school in May during a week when there's very little staff at that school, and it gets grossly underpromoted unless it's at Laval, of course. And the webcast is virtually unwatchable. So some of the things that we talked about in around the East-West Bowl was, okay, what if we brought in a university team from Mexico to play you guys at the end of the tournament? Or what if we put a Team World together? Or what if, so we could brand you as a Team Canada? A lot of resistance to that because this is a purist event. This is about evaluating players. Although we had input from one of our people on the board of directors who said, who's a player evaluator in the Canadian Football League, who said, sometimes I don't stay for the game because the most important things that I see are what I see through the week in terms of one-on-ones, on drills, on being able to talk to these guys, on talking about coaches about these guys, like getting that sort of dimension of player evaluation. Because as he said, you could have a great receiver in a game that's playing in an all-star game with a vanilla playbook, and the 3 quarterbacks that you roll through there just don't see him, even if he's running great routes. So I can't draw a good conclusion on him. Like, player evaluation happens everything leading up to the game, right? I don't need to be at the game. So the game as a promotional vehicle was something that we just couldn't agree on. However, one of the things that we could agree on was getting the Canadian Bowl and the Vanier Cup together as an event at the end of the football season is a really good idea. It's a really good vehicle to find a way to get these 2 events on television in the same place every year. It's a really good idea to go to a CFL city or a leading U Sports city and creating a festival around amateur football every year. The CFL is going to be flexible with its scheduling. I think coming up in the upcoming years, they'll probably be starting a little earlier and ending a little earlier. So pairing up the Vanier Cup with the Grey Cup, which I was a part of in 2011, is probably an impossibility the way it times out. But why not go then to that traditional time where we've had championships on that last weekend in November, and have the Canadian Bowl on a Friday night or a Thursday night, have the Vanier Cup on that Saturday, and do coaching seminars, do high school semifinals or finals, structure things around that 1 week, and have a CFL team that is not hosting the Grey Cup host it, so they can bring in that professional game day atmosphere. They can run ticketing. They can even possibly include the ticket in a season ticket package. So we got people coming through the gate before we even get past step 1. Those sorts of things are something that we talked about in terms of energizing the amateur game and, quite frankly, making the Vanier Cup relevant again. Because, back in 2011, when we did the Vanier Cup television wise, we had 975,000 people watch it on TV. We were down to singles, so we had a lower bowl sellout at BC Place Stadium. Following year, we had 39,000 people in Toronto watch the game, a record for the game. It was during the hockey lockout, and they had 1.3 million people watch the entire game. They had a peak audience of 3.1 million.
Wow.
2 years ago, in their last year at Sportsnet, their overnight rating came in at 93,000. So that's how much this thing has slipped off the radar. It definitely is at its lowest ebb. It needs reconstruction. It needs a little TLC. And I think when we get together as leaders nationally, we can align our efforts and try to get this event back to where it needs to be again.
Right. Matt and Jim, I am loving the enthusiasm and the continuity you follow with wanting to get just things like the youth sports on that same level with the pros and allowing that level to come together. But I'm actually going to switch the direction a little bit here. We got a little bit of a story before, and we want to share it with our listeners, as a lot of them are from Medicine Hat. So we saw in your bio you've covered some WHL in your journey. Have you ever made your way through Medicine Hat?
Well, but my very first play-by-play gig was with the New Westminster Bruins. That's how old I am. See, this is why I don't have any hair on my head. Back in 87, 88, 88, 89, 87, 88. Then I was with the Victoria Cougars the year after. And then I'd taken some time off. I actually announced basketball in Europe for a couple of years, which is a whole other story. But I came back to Vancouver and was doing university sports, and then talked to Ron Toigo, the owner of the Vancouver Giants, and became their play-by-play guy in year 2 of the Vancouver Giants. And I had never done a prairie road swing. And so we were on a impossible prairie road swing. This was just before Christmas, where and it was more than just a prairie road swing too. We started in Kamloops. We came down through the Kootenays, played a game in Spokane, left Spokane, came up to Lethbridge, got a day off in Lethbridge, played a game in Lethbridge, and then the next game was in Medicine Hat, and we had a day off in Medicine Hat. And so we were staying at the Medicine Hat Lodge, and that year the virus du jour was the Norwalk virus. Which how should I describe the Norwalk virus? It affected you both ways. Let's just put it that way.
I love it.
And a number of kids got it, and I got it too. So we were kind of quarantined for a day, but we had no announcer for the game the next night in Medicine Hat. We had a color guy, but he wasn't a play-by-play guy. And so I was sick. I was feeling a little bit better, but I was really I couldn't eat anything. And so I got driven to Medicine Hat by the color guy. They wouldn't let me on the bus. And so I'm not sure if you guys have ever been to that rink in Speedy Creek in Swift Current.
I had once when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I've been there
So
once,
have you ever been you haven't been in the press box, have you?
No.
I
So
did not,
you
no.
can't stand in the press box there. Some play-by-play guys will sit, others will stand. I'm a stander, right? So to stand there, you have to kind of lean out over the edge of the press box to call a game. But I was in no shape to put any pressure on my stomach, right? So I actually called the game. I got down on my knees like this, and so I could see the ice, but beside me I had one of these, like a garbage can, because because I was so ill at the time, I needed it handy, like to hit the kill switch and address the garbage can.
Oh,
And
no.
it was that bad. And unfortunately, that's the only thing that I really have had imprinted on me from Medicine Hat. And I hope one day that I can come there for a football tournament and play in that neat little football stadium where I've seen Canada West exhibition games played out of on video. But unfortunately, Medicine Hat reminds me of being nauseous.
Well, beer's on us, Jim. Next time you come through, man. We'll make it up to you.
Sorry,
And
guys.
we'll take you around the Methanex bowl too. It's beautiful.
Yeah, just renovated. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It looks good. I saw a video of Calgary and Regina playing out of their was it 2 years ago and 3 years ago, and it looks like a fantastic facility. And I would love to see a CJFL team playing out of a place like that.
Oh yeah.
You are, yes, we would love to see that too, big time. Actually, that jumps perfectly into our next question. As we are speaking of, Southern Alberta, we were really excited. It's super exciting. You just saying Medicine Hat in junior football, but we're super excited about Lethbridge being awarded a CJFL team or franchise. Are you aware of any more expansion happening, or is this just a case by case kind of basis?
Well, it's good to see that the group in Lethbridge has got civic support for this. And they've got a great little, about 3,300 seat facility. I mean, it's not like it's in the center of town beside a river or anything. It's on the outside, but that's great for tailgating if they're smart enough to pick up on that. The Prairie Junior Conference is a very conservative group. They will move very slowly on this. They will think about football first, and they will ask hard questions about where you getting your players from. Where's your player supply coming from? How is this going to affect the Calgary Colts? How is this going to affect the two teams in Edmonton? Obviously they have a competitive imbalance problem in that particular conference, where there's, team 1 in Saskatoon, team 1A in Regina, and everybody else. So I would assume that they would also want to see a fairly solid business plan out of Lethbridge to make sure that, as they start up, they can sustain whatever it is they need to sustain. And certainly, fundraising is key. Not basing too much off of ticket revenue is key, and reaching the community and making it a destination is key. So I think they still have some due diligence to do, and I think they need to demonstrate that, but at least they're engaged. At least they're having that conversation. The CJFL recently expanded to Belleville, Ontario, kind of a similar community when you cross compare it to a place like Lethbridge. Those are the places you can go. Those are the places where you can also strike a relationship with the local university as well. I think that they can do a great job of offering scholarships if they want to go down that road, and have more flexibility in the types of scholarships that they offer athletes than a youth sports program, if they want to do that. Certainly the Saskatoon Hilltops take advantage of that. The Langley Rams take advantage of that, and the BCFC. Windsor AKO recently shifted their operating relationship to St. Clair College, so they're fully integrated into that. I think that's the future of junior football, is being able to offer academic support and offer that sort of financial support, be it to a university or be it to a trade school. Because let's face it, not all football players are university students, and there's no shame in pursuing the trades. and trying to make an income through the trades, and still trying to find a way to play football and find a way to play professional football through the level that you're at.
That's so true, Jim. That really well put. And I think those partnerships can go a long way in providing more opportunities for young athletes out there to continue pursuing their dream of playing football after high school. So I'm really excited to see how that develops, and we'll definitely have our eye on Lethbridge and hopefully potentially Medicine Hat down the road if we can somehow get involved with that and spread a little promotion on them too. That would be really cool. Wanted to switch gears here. I watched one of your interviews on the Rod Peterson show a few months back, and everyone was pretty disappointed with how the CFL season got canceled, and they kind of pinned it all on Commissioner Randy Ambrosie. And we've been critical of him here on this podcast as well, but you mentioned that it wouldn't be wise to just pin it on the CFL's misfortunes on him. Can you dive in a little bit to that? Because obviously you have a working relationship with him now. What's that working relationship been like? And to any kind of maybe more casual fan who's pinned the CFL's demise in 2020 on him, why is it not wise to do that?
I don't think it's wise because, it's like the situation about a quarterback getting too much of the blame for a loss and too much praise for a win. The CFL office is multi-layered, and they bring a number of individuals into the mix that bring a lot of skills there. So it is a group win or a group loss. I also believe that they were under the belief that the government of Canada, based on what some sources in the government were telling them, were going to step up and deliver something to make things functional for them for Winnipeg. And, unfortunately, I think with, some of the timing that happened that happened inside the government, the CFL got tossed a swerve. If you remember, there was the WE scandal. Minister Morneau was leaving. At the time he was leaving, that's when the government was going to step up and deliver something of a package to the CFL. Well, when your finance minister leaves, there's no one there to make the decision to sign that check from the finance ministry. And that's what they walked into. So I think that story's out there now. I don't think there's a sniper out in the trees that's going to take me out for sharing that story with you. But yeah, that's what they walked into, a government organization that didn't have a decision maker in place, and the CFL simply ran out of time. And everyone in that office tried their damnedest to make that happen. They put a lot of planning into it. I believe that you will see the CFL come back next year. It's certainly going to be a long road back to get back to what we're all accustomed to. I think it's a 3-year rebuilding process, quite frankly. There's going to be a lot of belt tightening. And they also have the added dimension of in the middle of that 3-year process, the XFL starting up again. There may be some room for some reevaluation about what the business model looks like moving forward. Certainly, they're looking at every angle right now.
That's kind of nice to hear, just in that sense, because I know that there is a lot of developments in like the subscription space, and the CFL was a little slow on going that route. And in fact, they hadn't, to my knowledge, and I think it's been kind of talked about more so, or speculated anyways. I don't know if you know more about that, Jim, but you did mention tailgating very briefly when you were talking about Lethbridge, and it just kind of reminded me of something. I had a very brief stint with the BC Lions at the beginning of this year. And when I was speaking with one of my coworkers, they were talking about tailgating and just how it wasn't very entrenched in the environment like you see in the States or hear about in the States with college football and NFL. I was just wondering if, since you've taken on this role, or even if you've had thoughts about it in the past, if there's any desire from for Canadian football to kind of harness that tailgating culture almost, and and just see what your thoughts were on that. If you think that that's even a wise route to go.
Well, I've been to a number of Pac-12 games, and I've been impressed by the tailgating. But man, when I went to Tennessee in 2017, I've never seen anything like that. Like that, there was institutionalized tailgating with tents, and you could buy a tent closer to Neyland Stadium or a little further away. It was multi-generational. It was family driven. It was alumni driven. And it literally made Knoxville glow orange. It's really hard to describe unless you're there. The effect, that festival effect that every game has, built around a tailgating. And I bring that up because I don't think that we can duplicate that in Canada. You bring up the BC Lions. You can't duplicate that in downtown Vancouver. Soon you won't be able to bring a car into downtown Vancouver on the way that they're going in terms of mobility pricing and all that. If tailgating is going to be an impossibility if transit is the only way that you can really functionally get into the city.
Right.
When Empire Field was resurrected back in 2010 and 2011, the thing that popped up, tailgating culture. There was room for it. There was space for it. It was fantastic. I participated in it. It was a whole lot of fun, man. It was fantastic. The challenge that I think that we have in some Canadian cities is the culture around it and the proximity that some of these facilities have to either institutions like universities or being fully in the downtown core, like BC Place Stadium is. Most of the successful tailgating cities in the NFL, those are suburban stadiums with suburban parking and plenty of space, right? So that never becomes an issue. I've been part of the Stampeders tailgate before. I've gone to a few of those. Those are fantastic. Never had an opportunity to participate in anything around Saskatchewan, although my friend Darren DuPont made a show of it over in Saskatchewan for a couple of years, of actually just spending half an hour at a tailgate before every Rider game and putting that out there online. It's a challenge. I think it's a road that we should go down. University wise, I think we've had some problems with homecoming in the OUA, where it's like, what was it, 15 years ago, there was a full-fledged riot in Kingston. Most of those people weren't football fans though. And in and around the Panda game, they've had to move start times around because we're just not used to that culture. So when you turn it on and when you open it up, people just dive in there and overindulge, right?
Right.
So to provide a structure, but not too much structure, I think is part of the key to making tailgating work.
Absolutely. I'm glad to hear that somebody in like yourself in your shoes is kind of behind that, developing that culture as much as you can. Like you said, some facilities just don't lack that capacity, but at least the man running part of the show is all for it. Got a quick question about, I guess maybe you could say the three of us. If you've got any insights or advice for those wanting to make it in sports media, you've obviously got quite the resume, both in hockey and football and basketball internationally. So would love to get some insights from you, Jim.
Well, I think you have to be a jack of all trades. I think you have to be a Swiss Army knife. I think, that little story from Mexico actually demonstrates that I was there. Like, people watched a game and heard an announcer, but they didn't realize that announcer actually went out and did the fundraising and lined up the studio and found the technical staff and then put the travel together and then went to Mexico, actually switched the audio and did his own camera work to make that happen before he lost $20,000 in equipment.
To cap it all off.
Yeah.
So it's different than like the 80s and the 90s when I was coming up, where people could be more specialized and you could walk into a situation and then, even then, like if you take that multifaceted approach on, if you can rise high enough in the business and you can fall back into one of those positions where you can be a specialist, having that appreciation for all of those things around you is going to make you that much better of a broadcaster at the end of the day. Because, you know what it goes back to? It goes back to what I was talking about, freshman players taking coaching courses and understanding coaching, or taking officiating coaches and understanding the rules of the game. It makes you see things from a different perspective. It broadens your approach to things. It makes you more pragmatic in terms of dealing with others in situations. So in terms of that professional development, trying to treat it like a bit of a buffet where you're learning a bit about this and a little bit about that, and not being shy about the technical aspect of things, and not being shy about the business aspect of things, and not being shy about the sales aspect of things, is going to allow you, as you develop with the media side of things, to move and progress, and to be able to react to what's available in the market too. Like there might be the only posting that might be available is a sales position, right? Go understand sales, go commit yourself for a year to do sales and understand how sales work. A friend of mine who you probably do not know, but was a titan in the business here in Vancouver, was Neil McRae. I got to work with Neil at CKNW, and a acerbic guy. He's the one that called the Sedin brothers the sisters. He's the guy that gave them that nickname. And he did it on radio like every second morning. Like I didn't like it, but it resonated well with the Joe Sixpack, right? But the reason he could get away with saying the things that he did was when he walked into CKNW years ago, the relationships that he made were with the salespeople, right? If money flows through you, they can't fire you, right? The relationships you have with salespeople are the most important relationships you can have, because you can do more and you can claim more territory on a radio dial or in TV or even online, because without that revenue, especially in today's multi-platform market, you're not driving anything, right? I'm very lucky. I have one particular sponsor that believes in what we do in terms of college football. I'm very fortunate in that instance, and we're always looking to build on that. But if you don't have those relationships to actually pay the bills and keep the lights on, and if you don't cultivate those relationships, you won't progress very far.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, that's sage advice.
But you didn't think of that one, did you?
Not at all.
I love how you talk about getting that experience in every different facet, and maybe looking at daunting tasks more as opportunity almost. That really resonates well, and I think with all three of us and our listeners. So thank you. We ask at the end of this 2 questions for every person who comes on and joins us, and I get the luxury of asking one of them. And it's a pretty important one to us because football's so important in our lives, and it's taught us a lot. So that being said, what's the most important lesson football has taught you since dealing with it and being in it?
That football doesn't discriminate once you put a team together or once you hit the field. It's the big kid, it's the little kid, it's the quick kid, it's the mouthy kid, it's the silent kid, it's the kid from any different ethnic background, and it's all of those pieces, and it's all of those units, and it's all of those attitudes with those units that have to come together as one and function as a unit, or at least those units have to tolerate each other to get to your goal. It is the ultimate team game. You cannot put another team game beside football and say that it brings in more moving pieces and more different types of individuals than football. Not rugby doesn't even come close to this, because you are more equal as an athlete in rugby, even if you're playing in the middle of a scrum, or if you're out in an open field running with the ball. There's not that much separating the two of you as there is if you're an offensive lineman or a defensive back or a kicker or a quarterback. The level of diversity in our game is a lesson for anyone when it comes to team building and tolerance.
Wow, that was really well put, Jim. That's probably one of the best answers we've got here, and not just saying that. So thank you for that. Another important question we ask all of our listeners here is very key and very near and dear to our hearts. We're actually split on this podcast 2-1 of who's in favor of what, but Jim Mullin, does ketchup belong on Kraft dinner?
Damn right it does. But
Yes.
only here's the thing with ketchup and Kraft dinner. First of all, there's always chopped up wieners in my Kraft dinner.
Okay.
That's one thing. The other thing is you don't put it on Kraft dinner. You put it on the edge of the plate of Kraft dinner, so it's always an option.
Oh,
right. You don't want the ketchup to overwhelm the Kraft dinner. You want choices, right? Right. So I just want pasta on this fork. Oh, I want pasta and some wiener on this fork. I want some pasta and some ketchup this time. Like you need with something so monotone, you need options, right? You don't want to mix it all together.
Yeah, wow, okay.
You don't want to mix it all together. And living on a broadcaster's wage when I was younger, this comes from experience.
Wow. I like that. Then you're giving yourself options. You haven't committed to the full bit. You can diversify each forkful. I like that.
A common complaint with this is that ketchup does overwhelm the Kraft dinner aspect. So by doing what you just said, that kind of eliminates argument, because
arm's length, right?
Yeah. That's right. I love it.
Awesome. Jim, thank you so much for your time. Like, everything from your experiences down in Mexico with Football Canada to your meetings with various stakeholders, and just your journey to where you are now is not only inspiring, but it fires us up to do more for the game ourselves, and much appreciated. Where can everyone find you on social media? And if you have a quick plug for that and the latest news on Football Canada.
I'm at Jim_Mullin TSN on Twitter. That's the best place to find me. We're also KGN on TSN on Twitter, and Football Canada. That's straightforward on Twitter as well. And they've got a great Instagram account as well, Official Football Canada.
That's awesome. From all of us here, Zach, Ozzy, and Steven, Third and Wrong, thank you for your time, Jim, and looking forward to having you back on very soon.
Sure. Anytime, guys. Appreciate it.
Godspeed.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, I got an election